Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. I am Lover's Lance.
And I'm Morik. This week, we're leaving the cozy romances behind and heading for something a bit darker.
That's right, we're talking about Devoted Vampire by Cherry Beanart. It's a bite-sized vampire mystery game with animated sprites, branching choices, and 3 very compelling love interests.
And here we are to talk with the creator, Cherry. Welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and how Devoted Vampires came to be?
Hello. I'm the artist, writer, programmer, and creator of Devoted Vampire. I pretty much did everything, except the music. This is around my 5th year working on games. I've mostly worked as an artist on different game jam projects. The second game I worked on was A Pinch of Magic in marketing, actually. It's probably like one of the most impactful learning experiences for me. Overall, there were a lot of failures in my first game jam, and I looked at a lot of past members' social medias, and I feel like I'm the only one who's still working on games, which I don't know how I feel about that. It's kind of disappointing, but we're still going. Hopefully this one will be successful and commercial. This game was largely inspired by how disappointed I was with the Vampire Knight DS game. And I also wanted to express myself better and more apologetically, which is why I started making games of my own.
Okay, so you've actually been making this whole project pretty much by yourself. That's quite impressive. And also, as someone who's been to a few game jams, I know the struggles you mentioned.
Oh, they're so unpredictable.
You don't come in prepared with a team at the ready and just meet the people there, which I've seen happen.
But it's still exciting though. It's exciting, the whole thing that you have to be fast for the game jam. You hope that you get noticed and everything in between, you know, like we've been through that. I know how are you feeling, and being a solo dev is it's a very hard thing, and I admire people like you who decided to create their own projects almost entirely on their own. So congrats on doing that, and I really hope that your game will succeed because it looks very promising by far. So talking about the game, in Devoted Vampire, you play as a vampire hunting in a district that the cops and residents alike tend to avoid. But things feel like they get complicated really fast. Can you give us a summary, like the general setup of the game?
You play as a vampire who's been homebound for most of your life and hasn't left the building, but has been feeding off of mysterious corpses left by some killer. You don't know why they're being killed, but it's a good source of food and no one bothers you there until a cop gets involved, and then all of a sudden you garner the attention of Wolf, Angel, Casey, and that's the cop.
It's got this quite gritty feel to it with hints of, well, not hints, straight up supernatural horror and mystery. What inspired the particular tone you went for?
This one's complicated. I don't think there was like a specific thing that I referenced. It's more like this is just what I really enjoy and like and read a lot. The very beginning scene and what really made this game happen was inspired by, if you played the game, this will sound very familiar. So I exited the apartment in broad daylight, and right in front of the elevator door, there was like a little blood speck trail to the elevator and to another door. It's kind of insane. I have
Okay, that sounds absolutely creepy.
Yeah.
Wait a second. This happened to you in real life, not in a game.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, this is creepy, definitely.
So writing the first scene was very simple and easy because it's just me feeling the fear I had. A lot of the other scenes
way to explore your fear, by the way. Like writing about it is just overcoming this fear.
It is almost the exact same as how the game starts. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it is just me being spoon-fed by my crazy neighbors or whatever else is happening in real life. I don't know if I'm like magically attracting these situations. I don't know if I like this or not.
That's interesting, by the way, because, for example, I get very easily scared, not by any regular stuff, but by supernatural stuff that they don't even exist. So currently I'm watching the show called From. I don't know if you've heard about it. And they're very creepy monsters that are actually humans, but not really. And they're smiling and walking towards you. And man, I am shitting my pants. And I can't stop watching it.
That's exactly
I hate it.
So, as we are on the topic of media, you did say you've taken a lot of inspiration from things you've watched and read. Can you share with us what's your favorite vampire media, be it novel, movie, TV show?
I don't think I was inspired so much by vampires, but coming back to Vampire Night, which is the main reason this game was created, I was very disappointed with one of the romance routes because you can't even romance the character. They quite
It's not
literally
romance route then.
They just tell you that you need to romance someone else, which I can't believe that happened. It just made me go, I need to make this. This is not fair. I need to make something that's, I don't know. And then I went off and made something that's not really romanceable, so I don't even know what I'm doing. Visually, it was inspired by Detention SCP and Vampire Night. A lot of text RPGs and sandboxes. Rosario Vampire was actually my first anime. Obviously, Diabolic Lovers is one of those series that you can't really say vampire without. The Fedora guy was awful. So many of these yandere or like Diabolic, what's it called? Vampire media, it's old, and because of it, you can like feel the age and all the tropes that are just, I don't think they fly.
I think I know exactly which trope you're talking about. Exactly the yandere-ish one about being too possessive. Is that the one?
I feel like that's still possible here, but I think it's more how toxic the relationship are, and that they're just played off as, oh, this is so cute.
When it's in a real setting, it won't be cute.
Yeah. A lot of Devoted Vampire was inspired visually by some second-gen K-pop groups, for example, Vix and Cross Gene. Scarlet Cross by Black Veil Rides, that's not K-pop, but that was the biggest visual inspiration that just made me go, oh, this is what I want. I want something vampire, besides Vampire Night being a disappointment.
So
plenty of inspiration.
To hear that the Vampire Night game was a disappointment for you. Even though I haven't played this game, I watched the anime a couple of times when I was a teenager, and I loved it. I loved it so much. It was one of my first animes. Now when I look back to it, I feel like it has very questionable themes in there, but I still hold deep love towards this anime. So even though you're saying it's a disappointment, I'm happy that it inspired you in some way, I guess, even if it was in a bad way, I guess. And talking about the idea of vampires, in your game, vampires are constrained by daylight, like it's a usual thing though, but in the game you can investigate only during daylight hours, right? And this adds real urgency to the game. So how is this mechanic going to shape the story structure in the future?
So, fun fact, Day 2 was supposed to be part of the demo release or like the game jam release, but time happened and bugs and coding errors and problems. So I only have
the regular things that happen during game jams.
Yep. But it's just you, so you can't even like share the stress and just shove it all to the programmer to deal with. At first, there was supposed to be like a limited daylight system where you have like 3 or 4 actions that you can do. So, kind of like in how RPGs, you might have, well, you do this task and like 5 minutes pass, and then it kind of stacks up to like end the day. I realized that would kind of be difficult. First of all, there's a lot of writing that needs to go into it, then planning and coding, which I'm terrible at. So I kind of scrapped it and instead made it so you can hang out who you pick with and investigate them and their scenario or what happens for the day, and like only them for that day. So I already know in the back of my mind, like the backstory of what happens, what the characters have been doing behind the scenes while you're not around, and it adds a lot to how much you need to plan because it's so focused on this since it's a mystery and it's like a very critical moment for the game. I would love to make something more complicated, but it's kind of taxing mentally because you need to like think about all of this.
Maybe for a future title.
Yeah.
So you're not adding this mechanic to the game later on, right?
I am, but I've simplified it. So it's not very free roam. It's more like you pick someone and you hang out with them for the day.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, sounds good.
Speaking of the characters, let's talk about the potential love interest, because even in the middle of Bloodstained Mystery, there is room for some complicated romance.
Yeah, and first up comes Wolf. I guess that's their name or nickname. And Wolf is some kind of a strange werewolf, or maybe something else entirely, with this very puppy-like character. It's weirdly adorable, honestly. So I wanted to ask you, what inspired the character? He feels like something beastly, but also so human-like. Not a classic werewolf, indeed.
Wolf is my favorite character. I'm very biased. Even if they don't have the most screen time, they're precious and my child. I think Wolf is their name. If there was one they had before, I doubt we will ever find out, or I will ever know. This question is kind of a spoiler in a weird way because of how important names are in the story. When coming up with the name, I settled on it after asking a friend because it was like the funniest thing ever. I don't think I should be allowed to name children. Just like how every other question is like a spoiler because of the mystery aspect, this one, it has a purpose. But I think Wolf's name is more, this was funny and easy, and I was running out of time, and I need to name the characters quickly. And I'm pretty happy with the names, but no, he's just cute. That's the entire thing. The concept was also like largely inspired by growing up biracial, and somehow vampires and werewolves, like, it was a very good analogy for it and also a nice way to explore it. While Boss is more like of a dominant type, Boss is Angel. I refer to him as Boss because that's what I had him noted down as before I gave him an actual name, and somehow that stuck a lot better than, I don't know, every other name I've given him. Everyone else I started to refer to by name, but Boss is just, he's Boss sometimes Angel, sometimes another name. Wolf is more on the...
Continue.
Wolf is more on the submissive side, while Boss was supposed to be dominant, so they were supposed to like foil each other and kind of like give contrast.
Mm-hmm. So Wolf is basically your partner, your friend from the beginning, right?
Yes, they're just more intimidating.
Yeah,
because
I
of
guess.
what they are.
Yeah. So this reminds me of my cat. I used to have a cat that I couldn't name, so I called him Meow. It's basically the same
The
thing.
parallels are the same.
I do the same thing.
Oh, amazing. I'm not alone. I noticed that the names you're using in the games are a bit punny. For example, Casey, because he's a cop and there's a case. So he's
Yes,
Casey.
I'm so glad you noticed this.
I loved it. But let's get a little bit back on Wolf, because I have another question about them. So considering the common trope of vampire versus werewolf, did you consider having Wolf's Road to be an enemies to lovers one, or it's gonna stay the friendly, cute companion you have during the whole game?
See, this question surprises me because my interpretation of Wolf is very different from how it seems you see it. I'm really curious why you got this sort of view on Wolf. But no, Wolf is supposed to be just cute. If you're looking for enemies to lovers, I think Casey is the closest you'll get. He's a bit of like a sassy, prideful type. I represent him as someone who's just, okay, there were just 2 words. Justice, tsundere, sass. Well, that's 3 words. The main goal was to hide that you're a vampire. So since Wolf is basically doing something similar, I think like these 2 characters would coexist quite well because they share a goal.
Okay. So I think to answer your question, why we got the impression for the question in the first place. First, because the trope is quite common, and second, because the introduction for Wolf, it was a bit spooky at first with him crawling up to you until the nose bopping.
Yeah.
So speaking of Casey, the cop walking around where he shouldn't be, they have a bit of a prideful energy to them, but feels like they're hiding more than just a badge. What can you tell us more about them?
I think of Casey as the youngest character. I don't have exact ages for them, but I always saw Casey as the youngest. They're probably like the youngest child. They just needed to have that energy. They're probably like the easiest to write because I really like banter, and banter is just easy. Wolf might be younger, but I don't think they act younger. They act more like an animal, and they're written like an animal. So when I ask what would Wolf do in this situation, I start thinking of what like cats and dogs, and maybe Google a bit about wolves and just write that in. So he's very complicated, right? In a weird way. Casey, on the other hand, I think to me they're very face value, but it's very interesting how others perceive him.
It's a bit like, from my perception of what I got, he was a bit like a very gun-ho-ish police officer that was in a bit over their own heads, if that makes sense. How to describe it, because your character, the one that you play, does say that police officers don't come to this area unless they have some kind of reason for it, like believing, not listening to their superiors being one of them. So that's why I got the impression that he doesn't always like play by the rules.
Oh, I see. Like, it's very interesting how everyone perceives things differently, but I guess it like adds a lot to... See, the thing is, I know what happens, and that's why I can't have this perspective. But seeing how other people perceive this is just very interesting, and I think that's good.
Yeah, everyone has their own interpretation of characters and what's happening, especially in the beginning of a story when you don't know everything about the character and the background of them. And as things slowly unfold, you get a better picture of things.
So we have only one person left here for the love interests. Is Lion, Boss, Angel. That's a name, definitely. They're mysterious, kind of hunting, and they're wearing a silver necklace, which vampire war-wise, that's a bold move. They know what we are, and that creates their Slayer dynamic. They're not afraid, and you're not sure if Angel is a friend, a trap, or something in between. So how did you approach writing the character, and what are the dynamics between Angel and the main character?
You've already mentioned that they're all puns. Casey was supposed to be Case, because, cops handle cases, and Honor just describes him well. Same thing for Angel, but again, I've said this, but names play a huge role, and I don't think I've fully done a good job explaining that, maybe even picking them well. It kind of reveals... Looking at the name, you get a lot more about the character than you would if you just... I don't know... read it? How do I say this? I think names are like the biggest spoiler because they're a dead giveaway of what they are and why they're like. I've said this before, but I've referred to him as Boss for like the longest time and I still do because despite all of these other names, it makes the most sense. And I think Boss was one of those names that I struggled with a lot because it's just so... it's one of those weird names. I think it sounds really weird. It's too, like, pompous, and it almost sounds like I don't know, some 12-year-old wrote it in their diary as, I don't know,
I'm reminded of that Kids
Prince
Next
character.
Door villain, Mr. Boss, whenever you mention it. If you've ever watched the show as a kid.
Okay, I'm not going to be able to forget that.
But look at it. Boss Angel sounds good as well, honestly.
Yes. I struggled with
they're an angel like a supernatural creature. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I thought it was more like a sarcastic thing, like they're totally an angel.
Oh.
Okay, I get it now.
I struggled with writing Boss quite a bit because all the characters were... I won't say all the characters were difficult to figure out for writing day 2. Day 1 was pretty much just laid out there in front of me. For the boss scene, the Handmaid's Tale was like the thing that made it all click and explained to me what the dynamic I wanted to get would be like. I think the MC would be wary of Lion since he wears silvers. He's probably like the most deranged character, and I don't think it's subtle, but I'm not sure if it's very clear or not. I think time will tell.
Okay, so we noticed that none of these characters are labeled with gender or standard roles, just the vibes of them. It makes it feels really inclusive and fluid. Was that the intention from the start? And why did you decide to make them genderless?
Originally, that gender inclusiveness was not the main goal, but it was like a side benefit. It was mostly because I plan to have female versions of the sprites, and implementing pronouns in RPG Maker and in general would mean more problems in writing in code, because then I'll have to actually skim through everything and find the pronouns, and that would be like another thing that I need to debug and check. So it just didn't make sense for me to do that. I did realize I have a problem with using they when it comes to like translations in other languages, because it sounds very wrong and just doesn't work in some. And
also, you're planning on translating the game for other languages?
Well, I mean, I hope to.
Nice.
In cases like this, I think since I don't have female sprites, if I'm going to make female sprites, that means I need to make more art and more stuff to do, and that's another thing that I need to consider when it comes to bugs. So right now, since there's not a lot of demand for it, and I don't have a good reason to, mostly because no demand for it, I don't think I've seen anyone like comment on it. So I don't have female sprites and no current plans to have them. So for anything that's to do with languages and language problems, I prefer that people refer to them as he if there's a problem, because I rather the writing makes sense than something just sounds weird.
So basically, you decided to make your life easier this way.
Yes.
I get it. I feel like the coding part is haunting you very much.
It's like it was like half of the jam.
Understandable.
I guess I believe that you're an artist primarily, and coding comes like another universe to you. And like, what am I supposed to do with all these words and stuff that I don't understand? So I get you. It's a heavy thing, I guess.
Oh gosh, writing this series was also like coding because a lot of it is like you need to keep track of all the things that your character picked. So I have like this very deranged. I tried to like make a little flow chart of it, and it looked insane because there are like arrows going back and forth and then forth and back. It's so.
I'm imagining those detective dashboards with all the suspects. Like,
yeah, I look
this
exactly
one connects
like
to
that
this.
meme.
But yes, writing a mystery story is quite hard because you have to track also everything, like all of it, and make sure the dots connect, as you said. Speaking of which, of these branching choices and paths, we're dying to know how many different endings are planned, depending on who you talk to, when you talk to them, who you trust.
So this depends a lot on the information that's acquired. I guess the point system is the best way to describe it. Like in a lot of Otomes, like you have either you end up going down a route after making a choice, and it kind of like flows into a route. Or you have, you did this for this character, and then you get a little plus. I think that's the closest way to how this story is structured. I don't have solid endings, but I do have an outline, and it focuses a lot more on the mystery than the end goal, because it's like the main core of what this thing is. You explore and try to find out information. So it's basically just me tracking the information you get, and based on that, in like a final confrontation, you'll be able to either do this or do that, or you'll have maybe lion in your favor, or you'll have cop in your favor, or wolf in your favor.
Okay, so the player's decisions are pretty much going to influence the clues and scenes that you get.
Yes, the player's decisions literally make you just avoid half of the content. Because
that means there's more replayability to it, though.
Yeah.
Because if you want to see all of the scenes, you gotta make different choices each time.
You can probably play a route and just never find out the true mystery of what happened. So it's, I don't think, it depends. I feel like maybe some people might be able to piece together what happened, but some players might just be a complete loss. But hey, at least you, I don't know, managed to have a little date with the characters.
Nice.
So I'm going to get you back to the development part, because we commented on it so much. You mentioned that you're using an RPG maker. So we talked about the challenges, but what were the biggest ones? Was it the technical, the writing, the coding, the artistic part of drawing the sprites? And what was the biggest challenge that got you bringing this game to life? What was the thing?
It was coding game engines and trying to find people to help, and, well, failing at that and then doing everything yourself.
Okay. Well, this is a character builder, I guess, for you. Like, I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna do it. Nobody can help me.
This is like the first project that I went, yeah, I'll get people to work with me. This is going to be great. Oh no, this is not great. I'd rather do it myself.
I'm so sorry to hear that, honestly. But that's how it usually happens, honestly.
The first test build was actually made in RenPy because I thought, oh, I'm going to kidnap my coding friend and they're going to code for me and things are going to be great. There was supposed to be a journal entry system. I tried to make it myself in RenPy. It worked, but not how I expected. It's like, it works, but it's not really working. It's, barely functional, but it does its job, so I just scrapped it, because if you click on the wrong thing, it just like gives you an error page, and I'm not gonna deal with that. It's just, I scrapped it entirely. I tried to make it an RPG maker. Okay, no time. Fine. Let's just settle on putting the story out.
That's a lot of stress.
Kind of, I also thought about using Godot, but Godot didn't have built-in visual stuff, and I wasn't planning to learn how to properly code and do all that. And also, I make like 30 billion typos per letter, and that ends up being horrible for coding because you miss a comma and then, I don't know.
Everything goes.
The sprites just start flying. Yeah.
That's my biggest problem with coding as well, that you're not allowed to make any typos, mistakes, anything of the sort.
Yeah.
That's why I like the spaghetti and the boxes system. Like,
yes.
the nodes are very nice. I use them when I edit stuff in DaVinci. So they have a very nice node system there that's very, very understandable even for
Novice.
Yeah. Because coding, it scares me a lot. I get you. But with time, you're gonna get better in it. I'm definitely sure. Yeah.
That's why RPG Maker made so much sense at some point, because, okay, why am I doing this when I spent, like, the last game learning RPG Maker and that took forever? Like, that was another half the month wasted on bugs and errors and figuring things out. Because, of course, why not use a completely new engine that you've never used to make a game in a month? Sounds great.
Yeah.
Genius decisions.
No, I get you. Honestly, game jams are, to me at least, they're made for making us learn something. So it gives us the sense of urgency. Like, I need to learn that so I can achieve what I planned. And the only way I can make myself learn that is by putting a time frame in it.
This is kind of insane, but a lot of works that inspired me were like Hannibal, the one with like Mads Mikkelsen. I loved Kafka's works. Stephen King's Carrie was great, but End of Watch made me think I could be a writer, not in a good way. It was one of those books that I was stuck with and had no choice but to read because there was nothing else. And Fight Club had a lot of writing articles and books. So Brandon Sanderson is one of my favorite authors of all time, actually. Based on my previous...
Yes! Yes! Thank you! I love him! I love everything this guy writes! God!
Let's go! Finally, someone! This is my first experience. This is so good.
Man, you have no idea. I'm bounding with you right now. Like, I cried so much when I read Moodboards. Like, is it Moodboards in English?
Mistborn, yes.
Mistborn. I'm sorry, Mistborn. I read it.
Translation-ish.
Yeah. So I felt like I'm 15 again, man. You know.
Oh, my first
Crying over a
username
book.
was... My first username was based on like the character Kelsier, and then I realized that was kind of strange because of their fate. So like every single time someone like referred to me as that, they were referring to him in a weird way, and that just makes me remember what happened to him. So I just stopped doing that.
Let's not spoil it, okay? Because it's
I plan to read it.
You should, Morik. It's a great book. It's a great
I have
trilogy.
One of the books in the series, my mother got it for me, not knowing it's not the first one. So I can't start reading it.
Yeah, you should read them by order, definitely. Yeah, let's not hijack the podcast. We're not talking about Brandon Sanderson. We're talking about Devoted Vampire. Because I can yap about it all day. Let's just skip that.
Maybe afterwards.
Yes.
For making the game and like development, I ended up using a lot of these things as references, and like these were all things that made me go, okay, I can probably do better and I can actually write, because I thought I needed to make it like very simple and go for like a specific style that people would be like, I don't think a lot of people read these days. So I thought it needed to be like very stupid and dumb. But then I thought, okay, you know what? These books exist and they're really good, and there are series like, I don't know, there are other manga series and like anime, and we can do better. So this is one of those series where I went, okay, I'm gonna actually write.
And you did a great job with writing, by the way. The narrative, the flow, the pacing, and they feel good. They feel very good. Even though it's a short prologue, I could have a sense of how the story will be delivered in a way, and I liked your style, so Congrats
Thank
on
you.
that.
Also, I agree that people still read. No, don't dumb down the narrative.
Yeah.
It's best to give it your all always, I think.
Same. I do believe in that. And to remove the shade over the people who don't read, I can say that it depends on the circle you're in and on your friends. Like most of my friends read, and I guess you just need to find the people to discuss books and stories with it. Like,
Also, audiobooks count.
yes,
I deeply
very
believe that
popular.
audiobooks count.
They do. They're very popular right now. So even though it's not my thing, because if I listen to an audiobook, I can't do anything else. Like, or I'm going to do anything, and I will stop listening to the audio, and I will miss something, and I'm like, what happened? So, yeah, reading is a culture that's not lost, and I believe that people will start reading more, and hopefully we'll have better stories to read in the future, especially in the fantasy genre, because it's kind of lacking and it's only Sanderson there right now.
So I want to talk about the visuals of the game. What inspired the style, and how did you approach making the sprites and the animations and the to enhance the move?
Animations, the most complicated thing here was programming and game engines again. Because I needed to... Okay, I don't think RPG Maker, like, natively does videos. Or, like, it doesn't do it well, or, like, it's really weird about it. So I had to go off and somehow... This is the same thing for Ren'Py. I've done video in Ren'Py before, and it's also a pain, and it's weird, and it loads weird, and it's... Also, because of formatting, it's very annoying, too, because... most normal people, obviously, they use MP4, right? And what's it called? MOV, like the transparent Apple format. It doesn't work on Windows, but it's good. It's functional, and it makes sense. And then we have RPG Maker and Ren'Py and everything, and they just use WebM, and like that's the best solution. And most animation software and normal things just don't do WebM, because who uses WebM? That was the biggest and most annoying thing ever, because I had to like figure out how to do this best. I ended up exporting as a lossless GIF and then making it into a WebM. VLC Media failed me, which is surprising, so I had to use some weird site for it. You know when you Google, please make this into like a PDF to JPEG or something, and
constantly,
thankfully it works. Yeah, that was the only solution. I wanted to make the art look good, but I also wanted to like use a more fancy style and actually like, make something good. I don't know how else to explain it, but it is a project that I want to make for people and for it to be seen, but it's also one of those projects where I want to like showcase and like show off that I can do better stuff. So for the visuals, I had like a couple of reference boards, and I would like pick from a folder images that I liked and then like swap them out until I found something that was perfect. And I kept it to that like limited square canvas, and if I added more, it would just never end, right? So it had to be, these are the images that you're going to stick to. Unless this one's not working, then you have to swap it out. And that saved a lot of time and also a lot of frustration. And it really like narrowed it down to, okay, this is what you need. This is what you don't need. Screw everything else. Mac exports were also kind of weird because it just didn't work. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm on Windows.
It's a Mac thing, I guess.
Yeah, no, Mac hates Windows. We've tried to do things in the past, never happened, never worked.
Including the podcast, by the way, it's a hard thing to upload
have no
to
idea
the
how.
Apple podcast platform, because we're all on Android and Windows, and in our country Mac is not, like, Apple is not so popular, and most of the people are Android users. So in order to upload your thing to the Apple platform, you have to have an Apple product. It's very,
this
very
is what's
interesting.
happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're just bullying us.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, they make good products, definitely, but Uh, it's a war. It feels like it's a war. You have to choose one side.
Getting an APK build was also a pain, but it was doable. Unlike an Apple build, that's every time I have to do something with an iPhone, it's either okay, every time you need to do something developer or besides just normal Apple stuff, it's so bad. It takes forever.
I'm so sorry. I feel your pain.
Yeah, we've struggled.
So, getting back on the game, what's the future for Devoted Vampire? We get to play only one day in the prologue currently. Can you give us a hint? What are we going to expect in the future updates, and when is the full game expected to be out?
I really hope to get it on Steam. I've never done it before. It's quite scary and intimidating. I don't know what I'm doing. For day 2, I plan for it to come out in May and June for another jam. I hope to get more days in. I think this game will probably be like 7 days, but it's like 7, 5, maybe 10 days. But because of how much people are just like pigeonholed into having one route or like one choice, there's a lot of like background stuff that players just don't get to see through the first playthroughs. It might feel like short for a player, but there's a lot more behind the scenes. My brain is still like processing the thoughts of how to make the plot work and everything like that. Working on the game is also scary because every time I test the game, it gives me so much anxiety. I just don't want to test it. I do not want to open RPG Maker at all. Day 1 should be getting a French translation, and it would be awesome to get around to other languages. I have to figure out how to implement that though. What else? We should be getting CGs. I may animate them. I don't know if I'll hand animate them or if I'll, tween it, or I don't know, use sprites, magically After Effects it, or I don't know, do
After
something.
Effects a good decision, by the way, because I do animation as a hobby, and I know that it's very, very hard to program animation.
Yes.
It doesn't work the best. So if like you don't have the control you would have in an artistic way if you do it like hand animating or in After Effects with the puppet point system or whatever it was called there, like it's extremely easy to animate 2D stuff there. So maybe you should try and save yourself some headaches. Yeah.
I've also used Live 2D before, and like I've tried Spine and the other ones. Live 2D is pretty decent too. It's quite good.
You're gonna figure it out, I'm sure. Like, even though it's scary and it's intimidating, you managed to get, like, you did the hardest part already. You managed to do it for the game jam. So everything
There's nothing
else
scarier than a bug.
Yeah.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
I have the Skyrim mentality.
Yeah.
So I also want to ask, how important is community feedback for the development of the game? Have you taken any suggestions from readers?
I haven't gotten enough of it to really do anything about it. I really would encourage people to bully me into working it more and leaving 30 billion comments about what I should do, because sometimes I'm missing a lot, and honestly, my friend has been amazing. Yuki, thank you so much. She's like the first one who sees the script and points out like very stupid and silly errors, and she helped a lot like in the overall process of just being there. She thinks she doesn't do much, but it's like having a companion to share your coding frustrations and everything not working helps a lot.
Also, having a test reader, I imagine, helps a lot.
Yes, they're a Mac user though, so...
You heard her. Everyone, go bully Cherry into working on this game. We want to see how the story will unravel in the future. And we got to my favorite part now. It's the exclusive content question. So, you send us some interesting PNGs here. So the first one is the hallways. What's going on here? Is this like the base CG you used to draw over, or what happened here?
Right. So the stairs were done in 3D. At first, it was done by my friend who used some sort of CAD software. I don't know. They're studying architecture, so I thought, yeah,
Probably
you go
CAD.
do that.
Wow.
They had a bit of a time issue because, well, they're busy, and obviously they had not much that they can do because of that, which fair happens. So I did try and use their work, but it wasn't finished enough to be functional for my purposes. I had to, I ended up using, what's it called, SketchUp to make the stairs hallway thing. That didn't work either. That's when I ended up using Blender, and, well, I can't believe I didn't just use Blender. That was very dumb of me. Should have done that sooner. Most solutions just go down to, yeah, you should just export it in Blender or do it in Blender.
I've seen a lot of artists do their grand architectural drawings like that, mapping out the whole thing in Blender and then drawing over it.
Yeah, because Blender is extremely UI friendly.
Yes.
So
I do not know any shortcuts. It's great.
Maybe there aren't any.
No, there are.
Yes. So I've already mentioned this, but we had like a mood board, and then we had, this is like the reference sheet that I had for them, and it's the only thing I have for them. I don't have proper turnarounds. That's another thing. I will get into it later. Angel was actually drawn first. They're drawn in order, so you can see Angel is first, and then we have Wolf, and then we have Casey, right? No, it's the complete other way around. It's Casey. Wait, I'm confused now. All right. So reference-wise, Casey went first, then went Wolf, and then went Boss. But during the actual sprites, Boss went first, then went Casey, and then went Wolf. Yes, that's right. All right. Because Boss was the test subject for everything, so every single time I ran into a Ren'Py failure or anything else, Boss was there to greet me. With his like head completely chopped off and like 30 miles away from the screen, and like only his foot would show or something. So Angel was drawn first, which impacted the entire color scheme. If he was not drawn first, we could have maybe had like a lighter skin tone for some of the characters, like in the initial reference sheet, but I'm actually quite happy with how it turned out. I have a bit of a weirdly expressive style. I don't know why I like saturated colors so much. It makes sense to me, like anything very plain, or like when you know that multiply mode was used to just shade in like gray or like purple. I don't really like that for myself. I like it in other people's work, but I don't think I can do that myself for some reason. I think it looks wrong for me.
Everyone has their own style, after all.
Yeah.
By the way, you have very, very distinct style. Like, I'm not sure if I've ever seen something like that before in visual novels. It feels kind of primal and at the same time detailed in a way. I don't know how to explain
Thank you.
it. I really like it.
I tried to make it a bit more generic so that more people would actually like play the game, and also to make it like more impressive, because this is my first game or any project where I went for a more detailed style. I went off on like a huge, I'm gonna study anatomy and make better portrait art and stuff, and this is like the fruits of my labor of studying.
Okay. I think that there's a comment here that we need to share with Morek. We talked about wolf's ears.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh.
So, why did you decide to put human and
Animal ears.
animal ears?
Well, first of all, it makes sense plot-wise, but the real reason is it made more sense, and like it just looked more natural. I feel like if he didn't have ears, it would look weird. And also when you're like drawing in perspective and you end up using like ears as a reference point sometimes. So when there are no ears, and when I was drawing him, I was like, ears are no ears. And I started panicking when there were no ears because where do I place the eyes? Where do I place everything else? So ears it is. Ears have to be there. It was very anxious. I don't know why. It scared me.
No, nothing to be worried about. I believe most animal-human hybrids in media have the same thing.
Yeah,
4 ears.
it sparked our discussion
Yes.
after we tested, like, are the cat girls like that as well? Do they have 2 pairs of ears? Oh, they must hear everything. So, okay, so we have another PNG here. I believe that's Cop.
Yep, that's like a close-up of the reference. Angel was supposed to have a cross on her neck in their reference. Honestly, the Cop's was pretty straightforward. Angel is the one who made through like the most variations and changes. I only happen to have like a good close-up of the Cop. So that's why the Cop was sent. I didn't take many screenshots of the process. He was supposed to have a cross on the neck because back to Black Veil Brides and them being like a huge visual inspiration. Yeah.
I believe that we had almost the same influence when we were growing up, like me and you. I just find it very funny.
Oh no. He was also supposed to have like a more scruffy priest villain, monolid, half monolid, like one eye not monolid, one eye monolid look. But we ended up going for a more modern look, one because the priest car looked too goofy, and I guess it looks more modern. Someone called him a twink. I don't know how to feel about that. I never saw him that way. Wow. He was supposed to have green eyes. It would have made sense plot-wise. Didn't do that. Don't remember. Probably forgot. For Boss, besides everything I just said, I really like Alexander McQueen's and Prada's collections. So I did use them as a reference for the art, but they got overshadowed by like a couple of K-pop references. And because, drawing heads from angles is complicated, and using real people is a lot easier to do because you can find a lot of angles of them. So for him, we had San, DK, Mingi, Jeno, and Hoshi. And for Casey's mood board, this is strange, but we did plan to have female sprites. We had Kwanzi from Chainsaw Man, Christian Bale from Equilibrium. Christian's outfit
I can kind of see the influences now that you mention it.
was supposed to be Boss's theme, but I wanted a more police look. I had an obsession with anything zombies, so there were a lot of like zombie character game references. I don't know why. We ended up going with Hoshi, Aki, and Risley. I don't remember his name for that. Wolf was easy. Wolf is just wolf cut and basic clothes. He was the easiest to draw, but also the hardest because of the facial angle. And his animalistic details. Bomgyu and Hyunjin were used as a reference because they had wolf cuts at some point, and that was a very good reference for the hair. I don't think I have much to say about Wolf. I know I speak of him as if he's like my favorite character, but I don't do much for him. Like he has.
You said he was the easiest to figure out a design for.
Maybe that's why he's my favorite. A lot of these character moments happen because, oh, that's so cool. I want to do that, but I want it more like this. Yeah.
Okay,
well, that's it from the exclusive content question. I believe that we have one more for you, though. It's not exclusive, but it's still a nice question. Maury, go ahead.
Yeah, how's it going? Before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners?
Thank you. please play my game. Because I have no clue what I'm doing, and I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not. Besides the Mac version being completely broken, I'm sorry, I hope to fix it. I'll try and exporting it on a Mac. I will try and steal a Mac from a Mac user if they let me use their precious computer. I have been trying. I have asked a couple of people. It hasn't been working well. The Mac
so
is indeed
cute.
precious to them.
Okay, guys. Cherry is very sweet. Go and check out her game. She needs your support, guys. Just supporting the
feedback.
developer. Let's do it.
Thank you for all the cats that have served as moral support and people who posted pet pictures. I really couldn't have done it without you. Every single time I come across a bug, it's like, all right, where's my cat picture? Okay, I feel healed. I can move on. There are like a couple of these random things that just, yes, this is what I pray to when things don't work. Also, thank you for being such great hosts, and I wish you guys all the best. And yeah, thank you.
And thank you for joining us today. It was truly a pleasure chatting about Devoted Vampire.
And to everyone listening, give Devoted Vampire a try. Leave a rating, drop a comment, send a cat picture to Cherry. Support this little haunting little gem of a project. Because it's important. It's important to support indie developers.
You never know what you'll find in the shadows or who's watching you from them.
Until next time.